I spent the last 3 days learning Unreal Engine 5. The plan was to allocate day 1 and 2 to learning the basics and then creating a final project as the test of my skills on the 3rd day. So day 1 I started by searching a fitting tutorial, and this 20-part series by Bad Decision Studio looks good. Yeah, I can definitely finish this in 2 days. It's just 8 hours of video, it's no problem. First I learned all the super basic stuff like adding, scaling and moving objects, as well as how to actually navigate in the viewport. It's very weird for me to use the controls of Unreal Engine. It's gonna take some getting used to. Next were Unreal's modeling tools. And no. Yeah, at first glance, I didn't think they were that great. And I mean, they aren't. The tutorial explained how to use them and I did, but modeling in Blender is actually the way to go. But once that's done, the next thing is lighting. The cool thing here, coming from Blender, is having this kind of quality in real time, which of course is one of the main reasons to use Unreal, though it does come at a bit of a price. Materials work in basically the same way as in Blender, just that all the nodes have different names. But yeah, now it's already 10 PM, so last video for today, part 10, which is about post-process volumes. Ooh, look at that lens refraction stuff. That's so cool. Kinda like my film emulation notegroup for Blender. If you use Blender, check it out. It can't do everything the post-process volume can, but it can do glow, glare, vignette, halation, film grain, and so on. So link in the description. But yeah, after that, I'll call it done for today. So on to day 2, which was all about HDRIs, assets, animations, cameras, and rendering. One thing I found really frustrating though, is that this sequencer was kind of buggy for me, because when I dragged in an animation, I had no way to slide it around and retime it. The fix for this ended up being to just close Unreal and reopen it, but still, it took around an hour to figure that out. Another thing is that I can't render at anything higher than 1080p or use a screen percentage of higher than 100, because else Unreal crashes on me, which of course is because of my PC specs. Alright, now that I'm done with the tutorial series, I think I can say that if you want to learn Unreal Engine, then this tutorial series is a really good starting point. Just don't, go through the whole thing in 2 days. That's a bit too stressful in my opinion. But yeah, there are still a couple of issues left, which if this was an actual project I would definitely fix. But I'm not going to, because the real project is tomorrow. So see you day 3. For the scene today, I want to make a medieval stronghold in mountainy terrain surrounded by autumn-colored foliage. So to get started, I first created a terrain in Blender and exported it as a height map for use in Unreal. Then once I brought it in, I had to actually find a mountain that would work for my idea. So I flew around the landscape for a bit, which the navigation feels quite natural at this point, until I found something I liked. After that, I dialed in the lighting and made a terrain texture by mixing some grass and glyph textures together using a technique I learned in this tutorial here. So what I'm doing is basically just revealing the cliff in the steep areas of the terrain and having the grass cover everything else. Once that's done, I brought in this castle model off of Sketchfab and scaled it to be what I thought was the correct size, when in fact it was about 10 times too big. Unfortunately, because the mountains are also way too huge, this is an issue that I can't just fix, so I'm gonna have to redo the scene. To do that, I re-imported the terrain, this time making 210% sure that it was the correct size, and then redoing everything else as well, until I reached the same point I was at in my last attempt. So then I brought in some trees and hue-shifted the leaves to be more autumn color. Then placing them in the scene, which some of them were hand-placed, but most were done using a procedural foliage spawner. Afterwards adding some grass, bushes, rocks and sticks using some Megascan assets and the foliage brush. Now it's getting pretty late, so I'll quickly add a camera animation and render the scene. And render the scene. Okay, again? Okay, now it finally works, but to get it to work I had to reduce the screen percentage to only 80%, which is pretty unfortunate. The next day the render was done, but once I saw it I was super disappointed, because it just looks worse than a scene out of Shrek 1, which maybe for its time had good graphics, but it's 2024 now, so yeah. Can't let it stay like this. So I'll spend another 2 hours fixing all the issues. The main one being that the leaves kind of disappear in the distance. The way I fix this, if anyone else has the same problem, is to disable mip mapping for the mask texture. I also tweak the colors of the grass and the bushes a bit, and after that I'm relatively happy with it. So let's re-render, do a bit of compositing in Blender, and a slight color grade in Resolve. And now it's done. So here is the 3 days and our render.